Hey everyone, welcome back to Let's Play Museum Madness. In the last episode, we got through our first couple of history exhibits, the Salem Witch Trials, and let me think. I don't remember what the other one was. Oh, the Transcontinental Railroad, of course. And in this episode, we're going to be going on to one of the largest exhibits in the game, the Revolutionary War. And this pretty awesome DOS version of Yankee Doodle is actually nice to hear in the background. So, yeah, this is a Revolutionary War exhibit, but history has been a bit scrambled. This is the first real history scrambling one that we've seen. So we can't get inside the fort. I believe this is Fort Ticonderoga. I believe that's explained by the people on this next screen. This area is one of the biggest. It has the most screens. It also has one of the most number of people to talk to and the most things to do. And we do have to do some backtracking as well. So apparently General Washington fell at the Battle of Brandywine and hurt himself, and now they're holding him captive in the fort, and we have to go in and see them if we can. If we talk to the postmaster, he tells us that yes, he is being held in Ticonderoga, and we have to get inside to see him, and that the guards outside are really gun-shy and frightened because they're guarding such an important person. We also claim to be from France, which is blatantly untrue. Anyway, after he rides off, he drops a letter, which we're going to have to pick up because this is important for later. For the manager of the Buckland Tavern. Now, this is an interesting little mini game that we want to be able to do right off the bat. And yes, everyone in this time period did wear wigs that look exactly like George Washington's. Why do you ask? So what we have to do is we have to load and fire a musket in 15 seconds, which is about as fast as a Revolutionary War soldier actually was trained to do it. To be able to do that, though, all we have to do is click on the different implements in the correct order within the time limit. And basically we have to do it before that time limit, otherwise the red coat will shoot before the Continental soldier does. So, I think it's powder first, if I remember correctly. Just going off of memory here, so, and then paper, then the shot, and then the prime. Oh, too slow. It's just a hair too slow. So the red coat shoots first and we lose. Thankfully, though, it doesn't kick you out of the exhibit like losing some of the other challenges later on in the game will. So all we have to do is try it again, and if we look at the poster up on the wall and you aren't sure of what the steps are, you can look at the poster here and it'll tell you exactly what the steps are to load a musket. Or a flintlock rifle, I'm sorry. So yeah, powder, paper, ball, and then ramming, I believe. Ramrod. I'm not sure exactly what that step is called. Yes, firing guns back in these days was a lot more complicated than it is now. You can't just load a cartridge into a prime or a chamber and fire it. You have to load everything that's involved in a cartridge and fire it manually. You know. So then you ram it home and should be more than fast enough. Yep. Of course, at that range, a rifle would be pretty accurate, but, you know. And then for doing it, we actually get rewarded with gunpowder. It's very, very, very dangerous, but it's really just, you know, just gunpowder. So we still have that in the letter. And with those two implements, we gotta move on to the next part of the exhibit. This is the tavern. You can see there's two groups here. There's the colonists and there's some redcoats over on the right. So they're both talking about a massacre. The rebels opened fire. 5 were shot. But they don't say exactly. The history is a little jumbled at this point because the Battle of the Brandywine hadn't happened by the time that massacre that they're talking about took place. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. But anyway, if we give this letter to the owner of the tavern, he's grateful enough that he's willing to give us some food and water. And earlier, one of the smiths talked about how thirsty he was for having to work over a hot fire. So we can take a little water and save some for later. We can also take a sandwich that happens to be conveniently wrapped in some newspaper. This is going to be important for later, even though it might not seem all that important now. This is about the Stamp Act, which, if you don't know your history, that's one of the things that caused them to rebel before things like the Boston Tea Party. This was back in the 1760s, was the Stamp Act. But anyway, if we take the water back to the smithy, he says how grateful he is and that he knows that you're with the rebel cause, and mentions that he used to be a good locksmith. Again, keep that in mind for a little bit later. So rather than stop here at the tavern, we're going to continue on to the next room of the exhibit. A classroom. If we talk to the student, though, he knocks his ink over. Or he says he broke his pen, but he actually broke his inkwell, which means that he can't write anything. We could try to take his papers, but he's still not finished with them yet, so we really can't. What we want is the candle up there on the shelf. It's very, very soft wax. And there's a chest here with some important papers in it. So if you know anything about making keys in this day, you know that oftentimes you could take a mold of a key just by pressing soft wax into the lock. And that's exactly what we have to do. Which we can then take to our new friend, the blacksmith, and get a key made. Now, what we have to do to help this boy is a little confusing because he says thanks for your help when we really haven't helped him yet. And you really have to think about it logically. We just knocked over his inkwell, yeah? So he can't write anything. Even though he says thanks for your help, we really haven't done anything for him yet. We're going to have to come back to that later once I've remembered exactly what we have to do. So we can take the wax key and give it to the smithy and have him make us a new key. It'll take him some time, though. But all we have to do to make him actually do it is to leave the area and then come back, and he'll be finished. So it's really not all that difficult. See, the key's lying right there on the ground. It says he's done all we can, and we have to try to help the general if we manage to see him. We could get into the fort now, but I want to save ourselves a little bit of backtracking. So let's unlock the chest and take a look inside. And this is what the headmaster considers important papers. Common Sense by Thomas Paine. It's one of the pamphlets that help the colonists to rally themselves to rebel against the British. Now again, the student says that he's been helped already, but he really hasn't, and he won't let us take his papers, even though we do need them for something later. And what do we have to do? We have to give him our pen so that he can finish his work. So apparently his headmaster is a Tory, which is a British sympathizer who lives in America, and makes him copy all of the articles about the British. The article that he gives us is all about the taxes, the sugar tax mainly, which, together with the stamp tax, is one of the reasons why the rebellion was stirred up in the first place, well before the tea tax ever took place. It's a very important thing. And somehow he gives us our pen back even though we still have it, even though he still has it in his hand. Oh well. Anyway, now that we have 3 papers, we can actually continue on, despite what they say. We need to move along at this point. So, the general, we have to get him out of Fort Ticonderoga. All we have to do that is, first of all, yeah, we have to get past the guards. But as we heard before, the guards are very easily spooked, and all we have to do is drop this gunpowder right in front of them, and somehow it explodes, causing both guards to run away in complete panic, and one of them manages to drop the key to this door. What happens to those guards? Nobody knows because they're gone and they're gone forever. Hello, General Washington. Hello, he says. But it seems that that bump on the head has actually given him amnesia to the point where he sympathizes with the British now. Basically, what we have to do is make him remember exactly why the colonists have reason to rebel. Now, Mick, see, he explains it outright, is that thanks to the virus, the general's lost his memory and we have to restore it in order to get the exhibit to work. But we can't just give him the articles outright because he doesn't trust us yet. See, he says we have to show him something further before he'll trust us. What we have to do, well, we don't have to look at his jacket, but we can. It's just a military cut jacket. We're going to need that a little bit later. Mick, what do we need to do? Yes, we know his memory has been damaged. Reprogram himself. Finding information. We've done that, but how do we get him to trust us? None of these newspaper articles seem to make him want to trust us. Well, what else do we have that is in any way attached to George Washington? Let me think. No, we can't take a knife to his coat. Not yet, at least. But wait. No, reading the articles ourselves won't do anything. He still doesn't trust us. What else can we do? We have a picture of him, don't we? Of course we do. Our dollar bill. General, you're already famous. Yes, you do look a little green, I know, but at least hear us out. So we have, now that he trusts us, since we're carrying a little picture of him around in our pocket, we have to try to convince him that the colonists are indeed rebelling for a reason. To get them to trust, to get the colonists to trust us that we have indeed met with the general, we can cut off a button from his red coat jacket which somehow says USA, even though the United States of America was not a term coined until 1776, maybe a little bit later. So we can give him all of the articles that we have, all three of them, and he says that they're increasingly disturbing and evidence of oppression, but they're not sufficient, so we're going to need to go and find more. That button that he let us take will definitely prove helpful in that. Since we have the button, we can actually give it to these men to make sure that they know that we're with Washington. So they'll give us another article that'll let us know more about the British oppression. This is about the Boston Massacre. It was a poem written around that time in a newspaper that stirred up quite a bit of trouble. Nice hats. So yes, we can try to ask the British for advice, but of course they're not going to give us anything. So we can go ahead and give that article to General Washington and see what he has to say about that. Yes, they do. But he still needs more convincing. He recalls a declaration written in Philadelphia, even though that was almost 20 years after the Boston Massacre. So, yeah. Like I said, the history of this exhibit is a little bit condensed, but, just roll with it. So the British men here are through tearing up something and they threw it on the ground. So let's go ahead and take a look at what they were doing. This is the Declaration not the Declaration of Independence. Yeah, I think it is actually the Declaration of Independence. It's not the Constitution, definitely. I apologize again for the sprite flickering. That's result of my DOS emulator not quite working up. Whoops. Didn't mean to click out of that. My DOS emulator not working quite the way that it's meant to, but it's not too bad. Fortunately, it can make things a little bit hard to see at times. So yeah, this isn't anywhere near the full declaration, obviously. They couldn't print that whole thing here on, you know, such a small screen. But it's enough that it'll convince the general, so you just have to kind of wiggle it in place. There we are. The Declaration of Independence. Again, anachronous history is anachronous, but it's enough to convince the general, and that's all we have to do. General Washington, sir, the Declaration of Independence. He must rejoin his troops. It took a lot to convince the colonists to start the war, and just as much to make General Washington finish it. We can go back to the main hall, and maybe we'll use that. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't see any vending machines. I think this museum is kind of skimping on that. That was a long exhibit, folks. We'll be going on to the next one next time. See you later.